All right, it must be Friday because it's another episode of Q&A with Alan and Marshall. I'm Marshall Atkinson.
I'm Alan Howe with Easy Way.
And welcome to our show. We're so happy that you guys are here. And we can't wait to get things going because we have some really awesome special guests today. So, Alan, who is with us today?
Never met him. We got Mr. Dan Solomon, as I affectionately call the guru of Silicone ink. He's been there from the beginning, and actually, special affection for Dan. He's a Michigan guy. Yes. We have shared just histories about our dads. We all have property, and there's a thing in Michigan where you have a cottage. It's up north. It's just called, and up north could be 5 miles away. It could be 50 miles away, 500 miles away. But I've been to Dan's place, spent time with him and his son out on the property. So Dan, welcome to the show again.
Thanks, guys. It's great to be here as always. Good to talk with you. And today we're going to talk about some intermediate silicone. And so our special guest is Kelly Grabner from bombbullies.com. Kelly and I have been working together on silicone printing now for a couple of years. And so just in some of her awesome questions as she's gone from kind of screen printing silicone 101 to an intermediate level, we thought it'd be a great opportunity to help some other folks out and just with some shop techniques and management questions.
Yeah, this is going to be a great show. Silicone is one of those things that it is such a great product. I remember when the first beginnings of it, of watching it and seeing how it progressed and going, man, this is an awesome product. And it's just one of those things, I think that there's a little bit of fear factor just due to the unknown. So this is going to be a great show. I'm very excited.
Yeah, that's a really good comment just to start, Alan. The fear factor of it. It boggles my mind, but I've been working in silicones for almost 30 years. So, but it's so much like some of the other technologies out there. We really, I think more than anything, sometimes the price is the fear factor. And that's really what we're talking about here today is how do we reduce that cost by good lab management, ink management techniques.
Well, sure. Dan, we're always afraid of things we don't understand.
Yep.
It's scary.
It's very scary.
So, Kelly, maybe
why don't you talk? Yeah. Oh, sorry, Dan. Why don't you talk about your shop a little bit, Kelly?
Before we get into that, Marshall, we have some people online watching.
We do. Hold that thought, Kelly.
Okay.
So Carlos is here. He says hello. Early's here, Canada. Saskatchewan, good morning, guys. Josh Wiley's here from Oklahoma. Good morning, Josh. David Eggers here. Good morning, all. Ghost is here. Hi from Sweden.
From Uppsala, Sweden.
Rob Coleman's here. Good afternoon, all. Great to have Dan on. Hey, Rob. Ray's here. Hello. Good morning.
Ray.
Ray's still got the best beard in the industry, by the way.
Yep, exactly.
I'm coming for you, dude.
Mike is here from California. William's here. Hey, y'all. Justin View's here. Good morning. Mm-hmm. It'd be really cool for you, Justin, to look at silicone and how you can add that to your repertoire, by the way. Hurley's here. First time using silicone worked great for me. However, the second time tried to stack 6 silicone high density screens defeated me. We'll get into that later. And then Rob says, regarding the price of silicone, 100% poly jersey returns due to bleed and sublimation failures are way more costly than the price of the ink.
100%.
And Sean from Alpharetta, Georgia is here. Hey, Sean, how are you doing? Mm-hmm. All right.
Man, good people on already. This is going to be fun.
Ghosta, I'm going to come see you sometime soon.
Yeah, so Dan, we probably should say that Dan is, he's been here for about 6 weeks. He's leaving us again. His family, they're working over in the United Kingdom, which is England to us Americans. We don't know what that United Kingdom is.
Yeah.
So
it's great to see everybody. And don't forget that this is a Q&A show. So we really, really want your questions It's really good that you write them. If you're working with silicone and somebody has a question, you know the answer, chime in. I'm sure Dan and Kelly would love to help you as well. That's why they're here. But don't forget that we would love for you to share the show that you're watching right now. And we're talking about silicone. So if you could just take 2 seconds right now and share that you're watching, that would be incredibly awesome. We would appreciate that. So,
Ray, no, she's just here. She's just to make us all look good.
All right, Kelly, your turn to talk.
Okay. I'm Kelly. I live in Niceville, Florida, and I've been screen printing for about 7 years. I'm just a one-woman show. I have a studio in my house. I have my own online store. It's called eodstuff.com. EOD stands for Explosive Ordnance Disposal, which is what my husband does in the Marine Corps. And down here where we live in Florida, it's the schoolhouse where every branch comes to become a tech. And so I just happened to make shirts for the unit one time, and that became my niche, and I love the guys. And I hit up Dan a couple years ago because I print on these guys, Silkies, Ranger panties, and I hate plastisol on nylon. So I hit up Dan probably like a year and a half ago about silicone ink, and now it's all I want to use. So
I love to hear that.
So, yeah, but I'm still new at it. So I mean, I'm learning something new like every day. But I love the ink.
Well, Kelly, I got to say this, please, from all of us here, tell your husband thank you for his service. And man, what a dangerous job. So
yeah, it is. But
yeah,
he loves it. He wouldn't do anything else. So, but, yeah,
that's great. That's great. So let's kick things off real quick. We're going to run some the GSG commercial, and thank you so much to them for sponsoring the show. And we'll be right back in a couple seconds with lots of great conversations. So stay tuned.
Feel free to dance.
You guys weren't dancing.
on the inside.
On the inside. Doing
that's good. So Cal's here. Good morning, Cal. Good to see you.
Morning, Cal.
Cindy's here as usual on YouTube. Thanks, Cindy.
Yep.
And then Kelly, Simplified, your husband, 2336. What does that mean for us non-military folks?
That's the MOS number for EOD.
Ah, there you go.
The EOD guy has 2336 in their email address.
Yeah, I believe Mr. Eggers, you were in the Marines, correct?
Nice.
If I remember correctly, I know you did serve.
Well, that's awesome. Well, thank you for your service as well. Right.
Yeah.
So, you guys ready for some topics?
We are. Let's do it.
Well, here's the first one. So, what are your tips for making and storing your own uncatalyzed, ready-for-use silicone inks?
Yeah, and this is a good question because depending on your ink manufacturer, and there's some really good silicone ink manufacturers out there, they may have a mixing system, or they may bring RFU inks, straight to your doorstep. RFUs are really easy to make yourself. Silicones have great stability or shelf life. So, I mean, I know that, some plastisols and water bases can struggle with that, especially with high and low temperatures. Silicones are really just very easy. I've printed silicones 7-10 years out of the bucket, and they don't change much unless you get water around them. So really, depending on your shop size and your orders, your volumes, I would mix up enough for if you have, your colors that your go-to colors, mix up a gallon of them, mix up a 5. I visit a lot of shops that work, large volume in silicone. And so they will mix, 5 gallons just for, a week of production or something. But the pigments, the silicone pigments are made in a silicone oil. So there's no really any separation that might occur. And even we have a low and high temperature recommendation, but they're very stable. So you won't see much change in your colors at all, or any change in your colors at all. The thing about silicones, unlike plastisols and water-based, is they're a true thermosetting system. And so what that is it's a cross-link cure. And I think I explained this when we did an intro to silicone last time with you guys. I like to think of it as a plate of spaghetti. So if you put spaghetti in a pot and you boil it up and you take it out of the pot, shake off the water, put it on a paper plate, run a fork through it, all of the spaghetti just kind of moves along itself really easy. But if you give it 5 minutes, all the starch is set up wherever the spaghetti touches another spaghetti. And then if you try to move it around on your plate, it all moves as one. That's exactly what happens during silicone cure, is those starches represent a crosslink. So once that crosslinks, it's thermal set and you're not changing it. Think of it as a rubber tire. It's going to be a rubber tire forever. So you don't have the room to change silicone like we would with plastisols or water-based with a fibrillation screen after the first print. Once it's cured, it's cured. It's there. So with the RFUs and using the silicone pigments, you don't have any compatibility issues over time. Now, I do get this question a lot. Can I use other pigment systems with silicones? Absolutely not. It's the one thing that is very specific. You have to start with silicone oils. You can't mix in plastisol or water-based.
Right.
Both of them will affect the cure of the silicone system.
So, Kelly, what do you do in your shop?
Oh, well, actually, this was my question because I was making like 10 grams of like a complex color and it was kicking my butt. And so I reached out to Dan. I was like, there has to be a better way, because I thought once you mixed it, you better use it or it's done. Because I use discharging and water-based, but mostly discharging. So
right,
you have that few hours, and once it's done, you just wasted all this ink, and I hate wasting. So now the colors that I use most, like cool gray and coyote brown and OD green, all mix up, and I keep in a Tupperware. And then I just add the catalyst to it as I needed. But I do have a question for Dan. Is it brand specific? Can you mix and match brands, or you got to stick to the one brand of silicone?
Yeah, and I mean that's an easy question to answer. Really, the silicone cure system for screen printing inks are called what's called an HTV, or high temperature vulcanate. It all works on the same cure system. So, while mixing from different brands is going to give you different effects from like opacity standpoint or screen life, stability, or flash time, it shouldn't, you should be able to continue to get like inner coat adhesion. I know during this time of supply and demand issues or supply issues, it's so hard, it can be so hard to find what you need. So I wouldn't be afraid of it. I would definitely, I personally would like to get a shop used to one brand, and then a lot of the problems go away. But this chemistry is the same for any silicone ink in this market.
That's great. And for future reference, Kelly, you don't have to raise your hand to ask a question here.
Okay, I don't want to interrupt.
Okay, so some questions.
Down the hall to the left.
Shirley says, mine came with a 6-month till expires date on them. I'll have to check with Lancer as to why that now. You said the shelf life is great on them.
Rob Coleman responded to that question.
Okay. And then Rob says, as long as it's not exposed to moisture, Stan stated virtually no shelf life. I think he means virtually unlimited shelf life.
Yeah, that's, you know, that is just an industry standard.
Okay.
We're losing Dan. Hurley, what I think Dan was going to say, and Rob and Ray comment on this.
Yeah,
Dan's back. You there?
I'm here.
Go ahead.
Sorry. As far as Hurley's comment, you know, I think that's an industry standard. Lansard makes some great silicone products. And we just get to a point where, especially shipping around the world, shipping to Canada, shipping from Canada, shipping to Mexico, we just like to say, you know, at 6 months or a year. But I would just jump into that bucket of ink and keep some around if you really want to know, but it'll be fine. But like Rob's comment was right on. Keep a lid on it. Kelly, you're doing the right thing. Keep a lid on the uncatalyzed ink, because you, especially in Florida, even though you're in Niceville, it's very humid. Sure.
Really humid.
Yeah. So moisture does affect the cross linkers in the silicone.
Right. And
So if somebody has an older bucket of ink, right, and they were to use it, mix it up and use it, and it actually performed and cured, and it's at the end of the dryer belt, looks great, we shouldn't have to worry. That's how we know, is that it performed, right?
Yep. If it comes out of the dryer and it passes your adhesion test, you know, which is usually a pick, right? Then it's not going to change. It has thermoset.
Okay. And
yeah,
Ray
most manufacturers have to put some sort of timeline on any product. So I like this.
Yeah,
Ray said
this a year, and I was like, how am I going to use a big old gallon of, you know, pigment color for a year? So thank God, because that's a lot of money.
Yep, it's a lot of money.
Ray says the spaghetti thing makes sense. So why did you stay on the chemistry terms when you described it to me? Snore.
No. He'll wake up in 5 minutes or so, and then I'll say something else.
Hurley hates waste as well. Rob says most manufacturers put an expiry date on all ink regardless. Most plastic companies warrant for 12 months, and we know it can be way longer.
Yep.
Right, and agrees with you, Alan. So
exactly, Rob. We're on this telekinetic thing, and that's always cool. We just always must remember to use that power for good.
So Callie, you probably only use, like, you know, what, white, black, and military type colors kind of stuff?
Yeah, just white, gray, red, yellow, a lot of yellow. The Vegas gold color I use a lot, coyote brown, military colors. Yeah. It's,
Are you doing like the emblems for the units?
So mostly I kind of do my own designs. I can't really see this guy, but he's a skeleton guy with a bomb and a bottle of booze. And then just different kind of explosive ordnance disposal logos. I'm starting my own kind of side Silkies business where I want to just get on there and have like a good idea fairy box for people to say, I want to see a donut on a Silkies or something fun, because it's kind of like a cult with these shorts. Like you see them at the gym, but it's mostly military people that wear them because they're pretty risque and they have no shame. So I just want to, and I save my, I guess, color codes. I print them out and I'll save them. But definitely with the colors I use, and I actually use them a lot for neck labels, the tags, because I do tags. And I do a very high mesh screen with that so it doesn't bleed through on the other side of the shirt. And I'll do a cool gray or white with that. So it helps to not have to mix it up with little toothpicks because I don't eat that much. So
that brings up, thanks for saying something about mesh, because what screen mesh, what tension, what squeegee you're using, what do you find works best for you?
It depends on the detail of the logo. I found with like this guy up here, the skeleton guy, and it was kind of hard to see. I need like at least a 156 for him. But something with just text, I'll use like a 110. And then with the neck labels, I'll do a 280 for that. And just, I don't press hard on that because I don't want it to bleed through. As far as squeegee, I forgot the actual number, but it's the one in the middle. It's green.
Can't go by color. Every squeegee manufacturer has their own color codes. So.
Yeah. So
Yeah, no, it's
probably
middle,
70.
generally like a 70 duro single, and then 65, 90, 65. I really like if you had sandwich blades. It gives you a little bit more backbone. The thing about, when Kelly was saying I don't push really hard on the back labels, the thing I hear a lot when plastisol manual printers switch to silicone or tri-silicone is, wow, this is really creamy and really easy to push through the mesh.
butter.
Yeah, and it really is. It's very buttery, both in the screen and at once cured on the shirt. And that's, one of the major positive points for silicone is the drapeability of it. But yeah, right. People that my son doesn't like to feel anything on him, and he's very particular about what he wears.
Me too.
But, yeah.
Kelly, do you print manually, automatic, both?
Manually. So I have
Manual?
a 6 press, 4 station, Riley Hopkins, something.
Perfect.
So, yeah, I got that.
Riley Hopkins.
Hurricane Sally.
Riley Hopkins was it. It's not something, you got it.
Yeah, and it's just a print flash print.
So that's actually one of my other questions was the print flash prints, because so the nylon, it's so hard to stick to the platen, and I use the kind of, I don't know what it's called. I use a lot of Ryonet stuff, but it's the eco-friendly platen glue, and
water-based platen adhesive.
Yeah, and it's really hard to do like a print flash print because the nylon will either melt or it will just come off the platen. So that was one of my questions for Dan at the end. So,
yeah. No, it's a good question, and especially with those really light silkies that you're working with. Silicones are actually printed on a lot of like lingerie, leggings, very light fabrics, but you do have to be careful with it. One of the greatest things about silicones is the low cure temperature. So you really only need to achieve 240 degrees Fahrenheit, and it will cure. They will also cure on their own, but it'll take days. But it's one of the things that so in my shop, I run kind of a development shop here. I don't have a dryer because I don't need one. I just flash at the end, and then, within a day, all the full cure properties come to it naturally just from the cure. So the print flash print on those sensitive garments can shrink them. And then if you're doing a multi-color print, then you've got problems. You come out of registration and are burning. Nobody likes the smell of burned nylon in the morning. So what I recommend, and this was another question that you had, can you do a wet on wet printing? This is kind of the same subject. Silicones and wet on wet, I don't recommend. That's not to say you cannot do it. There's hacks for it. And this, I've got a shirt here that I did a few years ago with the Michelle Moxley. And this was done wet on wet in a pretty traditional sense where we blended the yellows and a red to get the orange colors here. And then we actually overprinted. This isn't one of them. Michelle only usually, when she's in development mode, she does like one shirt of each variation. And so I got to grab them before she goes on to something else. But we did a water droplet effect on some of this with the silicone that's very glossy. And it was kind of cool with this print. But what we did is we went high mesh. We went 300s for everything, preheated our palettes. And then the flash time was just 5 seconds as normal, but there was an open space, what we normally call a cooling space, after the flash on an automatic, which gave us time. So we had 5 seconds of flash, and then we had another 5 seconds of heat from the palette. And that, with the high mesh, was enough to get that tack free so I could print another layer. Okay. Generally, silicones like to pick up on the back of wet-on-wet printing or process printing. So I don't recommend it, but that's the hack, is go high mesh and preheat your palettes. And you should be able to get away from that shrinkage. And then just make sure, as always, check your distance from the flash unit to the garment, adjust it up, never be afraid of trying to find the boundary of where you're printing at. We don't need much temperature. And with a manual, Kelly, you can give it more time, right? You can sneak it in and out of that flash dryer without building up the heat too much.
Usually I just use a heat gun. And I just got one that you can control the temperature on. So, because the other one, I don't know what it was hitting, but it was way too high, and doing a little dance, trying not to burn anything. And yeah. So.
I think with any ink like this, with it being low cure, just like with low cure plastisols, if you have a lower cure product, you are definitely going to have to adjust your flashes to low cure. Then, especially with a light nylon, which those tend to shrink and come back also. Correct, Kelly?
Yeah.
So Dan, could you use something like a jacket hold down, like we used to do back in the day with nylon jackets, where we would put it in the hold down, we would almost pre-flash it just to get it shrunk a little bit, and then with timing, we would print, flash at the same time, and keep everything stretched, and then move on to multiple colors.
I like the idea of preheating it, but Kelly sent me a few of those shorts to look at. And I don't think there's any elastane or stretch characteristic to it. So when they burn, they just burn.
So it just melts.
Yeah.
Okay. So I would think, Dan, on a flash, if it's curing at 240, 250, and guys, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, we're looking at like 100, 120 on a flash.
Yeah. 120C, yeah.
So that's pretty low. Yeah.
Write that down.
Move that flash way high up. 120 Celsius, you're saying, Dan, or 120 Fahrenheit?
120C. I usually set the flashes to like 280, but that's, when I've got a system all dialed in, and we know, we need 4 seconds flash, and we're not running on really light garments. But, like I said, light garments are really bread and butter for silicone, just from like a grip characteristics. All those garments that I had talked about are really about keeping things in place on your body. Equestrian pants, keeping you in the seat, things like that. And they're all lighter fabrics. So definitely utilize the low temperature profile.
Yeah, I would drop that temperature of the flash or raise it up higher.
Okay.
I almost wonder if you could put, if you're still using a heat gun, Kelly, if you could put like maybe even a piece of Teflon or even tinfoil or something, just to deflect the direct heat on it.
Okay.
You'd have to play around with that a little bit, but it might be worth it for your multicolor prints.
Okay. Thank you.
You know what, Marshall? Rob has a good point. As I was talking, I was actually thinking that way.
Well, we're behind on some comments, so let's throw them in here. So Rob says, I must state that pretty much everything I may know about silicone came directly from Dan the Man back in the day.
I would agree.
And Ray says, I know that Dan came to design our line. I was surprised on how easy the scary ink was to use. I kept waiting for something to fail. On the contrary, it printed easily. It's nice for an old dog to learn new tricks. It's just screen printing with a few different rules. That's great. Hurley says, I find my pressures for silicone and high density plastisol to be very similar.
On an automatic or on a manual?
Yeah. Peter says, good morning. How you doing, Peter?
Morning, brother.
From M&R.
Hurley says, seeing you print silicone on smooth, delicate fabrics, is it okay to run your flash a lot higher than normal?
Are you talking higher temperature or higher height?
Distance.
Yeah, higher distance, definitely.
Yeah.
And then Peter says, damn, I just convinced Michelle to leave my office. So there you go.
Michelle, get out. I got work to do.
I had that problem doing a 6-color silicone stack. The previous color kept coming off the shirt.
Yeah.
Do you do much high density, Kelly?
I don't know. I'm still just.
So high density would be considered, a really thick emulsion, like 100, anything from 100 micron to 400 micron.
Right.
What I use is Murakami Aquasol.
Aquasol
I can use that for silicone, plastisol, discharge, and water base.
Okay.
Right.
It has worked the best down here in Florida. When I moved from California, the emulsion I used there worked fine, and then I would pull my hair out because of the humidity here. And that Murakami is just perfect for my area. So I don't know if it's
a very good product.
It just works here. So
yeah, and back to Ray's comment.
Oh,
no, go ahead, Kelly. Sorry.
No, I just for what I do, because I try to do really high detail designs, I get my emulsion really thin. I'll do like a second swipe on each side before popping it in the hot box. So
okay, good.
So you're coating 2/2?
Yes, but scraping the excess off, so like it's really thin.
So you're going 2 and 2, or using a round edge or a round edge or a sharp edge of a sharp edge, and you're going 2 and 2, 2 on one side, 2 on the other, and then you're going sharp edge of a scrape coat.
Mm-hmm.
You could probably, with Aquasol, and this is just my opinion, with Aquasol HV from Murakami, because of the solid, you could probably just go with straight. If you're looking for a real thin EOM, you could probably just go sharp edge, start on the print side, and on the squeegee side, and you're probably good.
Okay, I'll try it. I mean, I'm always down to experiment and try new things. So.
Mm-hmm. And then Rob says,
yeah,
Alan, don't confuse gel temp with cure temp like plastisol. No such thing with silicone. It's either dry or not.
And that's good, Rob. Thank you, because that's exactly what I was thinking. And I didn't realize that silicone it's either it's dry or it's not. So, got it.
And that's where thermoplastic versus thermal setting. It's exactly that phenomenon.
Okay.
So once it's dry, it's cured. But back to the earlier question, I think, Marshall, you had asked and Ray had kind of responded to. If you're printing silicones and you haven't printed them before, or you want to play around with something new, they're very friendly to whatever emulsions are out there. I haven't had an emulsion fail with silicones like you do with water-based. Water is the universal solvent, and so they break down water-based photopolymers easier, but silicone is basically non-reactive to the screen. Plastisol cleaning fluids, I wouldn't clean with water because you'll get gelling occurring. But if you just any of your polar, like a mineral spirits type, my favorite is Plastisol 842. It's just a good all around.
842, yeah. We actually, Dan, I need to get some. And I know 840 guys, because it's an easy way product who I work for. We actually have a specialized silicone product for silicone. So I should probably.
What is that, Alan? Do you know?
Yep, like that.
Pardon me?
Do you know what the number is for that? Aha! Testing it. Look, he stumped the panel, folks.
I'm gonna have to look it up. I've only sampled a couple times because of the people that are using silicones. The silly prints, I sent some in.
Yeah. Oh, the silly people.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Dan, if you're like somebody watching right now says, "Hey, this sounds fantastic. I want to do it." Is there a color, or maybe they just order a sample of white or black or red or something that's a little less, scary to them, maybe to get started and have instant success? What would you recommend?
Definitely RFU white, or a white with if it's a mixing system, you may have to. I think everybody's got an RFU white because it's 50 to 60% of colors that are used.
Yep.
So I would try with that. And am I echoing?
It doesn't matter. At least you're here and talking instead of freezing up. We'll deal with the echo, Dan. That's okay.
All right. Typically what you use silicone for, like Rob was mentioning, is polyester dye sublimated materials. So to be able to cover, those reds and, bright colors with a highly opaque white. That's what I would start with. And like Kelly was saying, underbase with a 110. If you like a higher, nicer surface, I usually do a white 110 for opacity, and then like a 156 or 180 overprint, so you get a really nice surface. The silicone actually, and Danny Sweem, when we were running around with Rob Coleman and he was with NASDAR, he made the comment that it's almost that silicones have too perfect a negative impression of the screen, because you can put a loop on it, you can see the fibers where the screen mesh was. Nothing disappears once it cures unless you flatten it with an application approach.
So for somebody doing this, they could take that really crappy Badger dry fit shirt that everybody hates to print on, and then try it with 2 white silicone screens and see what the results look like with a little left chest logo or something.
Yeah, and we're coming up into sports season, so I know baseball jerseys and soccer jerseys are going to get printed here, and that Badger is definitely something that gets printed a lot on. Like Rob had said, when you start pricing out the cost of ink in a bucket, the cost of reprints is a lot more than that. We had a study, I had a study in my past lives where we took a printer that was printing for athletic dye sublimated goods similar to that, and they had a reject rate of near 35%. I mean, it was bad because of those dyes. And when we switched them from plastisol to silicone, they went down to, I think, less than 5%. And that was all from bleed through on those, because of high temperature.
And that right there offsets any cost per gallon. When you can bring your reject rate down.
How much more expensive is it generally per gallon? Like another 40%, would you say?
I haven't kept up with the prices over the past 2 years, as everything has. Kelly can probably tell us better than I can.
It kind of depends on the color in my experience of what I'm getting. It's $2.50 to $3.50 per gallon for the pigment concentrate. For the RFU, it's about anywhere from, I would say, $3.50 to $4.50, $500.
Which is
your matte bases and your catalysts and all that stuff. What I find kind of stinks is sometimes you have to get the gallon pigment concentrate, even if you maybe don't need a lot of it. That stinks. It'd be nice if they made smaller sizes, but take what you can get, I guess. So right now,
and those are high prices, right? I mean, it's not cheap, and it's certainly something that makes people balk at getting into or trialing. But I would, if you want to try,
it does go a long way.
Say again.
I think it does go a long way, though.
Yeah, absolutely. When you're looking at no shelf life, and I think what we said at the beginning of the show that Rob said, when you're looking at the price of a failure of some of these jerseys and these products of high bleed rate, because you're not going to lose just one shirt, you're losing the whole batch.
Yeah.
And we're talking thousands upon thousands of dollars.
And I think
really
said
it's a great solution.
So that you can actually charge a little bit more because it's a premium ink.
Yeah, the hand feel of it is like nothing else out there, and you don't get cracking that you would with both water-based and plastisol after multiple washes. Stretch is huge, so everything I print on is lycra, spandex, polyester, and nylon, and the stretch characteristics. And it's not just the stretch, but it's also the recovery. The recovery of the silicone actually helps the garment retain its original shape too. And that I'm going to put Ray to sleep real quick. That just goes back to the atomic shape of the silicone. All right, he's out now for 10 minutes. But one thing that we wanted to touch on is how do we cheapen that up even more? And that's really with conservation techniques. And one of the questions that Kelly had is, what about RFU inks that are catalyzed? So once we get to catalyzed, we take our catalyst, and all silicones need catalyst, or they are not going to cure. And with the catalyst, that it's sold with.
That mistake.
And I know a lot of people have done that. They're like, man, I hit it with the dryer for so long. Did you add catalyst? And then I get this catalyst and retarder usually come in the same looking jars. And so I tell people to tape green over the catalyst and red over the retarder just so they come back.
Why don't we make it with different color labels, Dan?
I don't know. You got to ask the manufacturers. I'm an independent contractor. But so ink management, it's really important. So, Kelly, let's say you mix up a gallon of your cool gray because you're going to use it over a year, and now you don't have the question about shelf life. You obviously don't need, if you've got it, a dozen shorts to order, you only need 100 grams. So, catalyze that 100 grams. And then when you're done printing, put it back into, a small container, cover it back up, put it in a cool space. I tell most shops to just buy a refrigerator. Depending on the size of the shop, it could be as small as a dorm refrigerator. Mm-hmm. You'll get, several, depending on your system, several days to several weeks of a capped, catalyzed silicone ink in a cool location. But we got to keep the cap on it because otherwise you just get some volatilization occurs that kicks off the reaction.
So if you're using a refrigerator, is that set at how do you adjust the temperature in the refrigerator?
It doesn't matter. Just keep it
just
cool.
Like normal refrigerator setting.
Yeah, 40 degrees.
And then I think Dan also reminded me, if it touches the screen, don't put it back in the container.
Agreed.
Right. So that's really important. If I try not to, especially in hot locations, Kelly, if that ink has been on the screen for 2 hours and you put it back into your 100-gram cup, you put in something that is almost, closer to curing than what's in here. So just scrap what you have on the screen, and then never put catalyzed ink in with an uncatalyzed system. Never do that either, because everything's going to catalyze over time.
Mm.
Yep.
Yeah, we have some great comments, and there's a lot of them. So Hurley says, manual V2K.
I asked Hurley what he was printing on, so that's a V2000.
And he higher height. That's what he's talking about.
Okay. Yep,
Dave says it's Silicone 222.
That would be it. Correct, Dave.
There you go.
And that's actually a screen wash, not a press wash. So I was mistaken on the press wash.
Hurley says, I need something I can use in my house to clean silicone. I use mineral spirits. My wife just about shot me. The house reeked for 3 days with an air exchanger going constantly.
Hurley, I'll tell you what product. Just text me because you're in Canada. I'll tell you where to get it at. Just
is it a secret? Alan, is it a secret?
It's Easy Solve 842.
There you go.
And there is odorless mineral spirits, but it's expensive. And I think it's even more expensive in Canada and California because it's like a really low volatility. But anything polar-based, any polar-based solvents, I mean, you can clean it with gasoline, but your wife's not going to be happier with that.
Gasoline doesn't smell better than minerals.
Right.
Although some people really like the smell of gasoline. While white is generally the highest use color in any ink system, Dan's comment about 60% of white usage in silicone is exactly true. Testing white is your best bet. It will also generally have the shortest pot life once catalyzed. Great.
Exactly. Right.
Double easily in per gallon price.
Correct.
Hurley says, I'm paying about 40% more for silicone from Lancer.
Okay.
Versus plastisol.
Yeah.
Rob says, think of it this way. If you put 15 cents of plastisol on an expensive garment and you go to 45 cents, how many rejects does it take to cover 30 cents?
And why aren't we just passing along that 30 cents to the customer anyway?
Exactly.
Right. Absolutely.
Is silicone always used for high density with capillary film?
The only
Silicone
one I
is-
know of, Dan, you might know more. You trying high density with silicone is Hurley. I've never even heard of that before.
Oh no, silicone is perfect for high density. Now you have to, when you develop a product line, you've got different viscosities and different rheologies, which is even more important when you get into capillary film, printing anything over 100 micron, especially with something like what Kelly's doing, these high resolution images. You want to clear corners, you want to clear points really easy. But silicone is used for high density printing all over the world. You just have to make sure you have the right rheological profile. And if Ray woke up at all, thixotropy is something that is the shear thinning ability of. So we do it when we're mixing up plastisols. We shear it down before we get them onto press.
Right.
A really high thixo or thixotropic ink will clear all those corners and fine points in a high density. And you really, with the right base, you don't have to stack it. I know Hurley was talking about stacking 5 or 6 times. I would say, try 400 microns. I was just working with a client that he's not even in the garment embellishment business, but doing some really high density stacks. And we were running 400 microns all day long, easy.
Right.
And if you think, like, I know a lot of, like, for example, sock manufacturers print the dots on the bottoms of the socks for gripping, right? Those usually high density little dots.
Yeah, and a lot of times those are printed on a different process. It could be a dispense, or it's just I've seen just very small screens that they just continuously print them because the volume is huge.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Hurley's got a great idea, which is half beer fridge, half beer fridge, half beer, half silicone ink. And Ray agrees with that. Shocker, Ray, that you agree with that comment. And then Hurley says, I'm running about 600 microns. So you're trying to stack something up like 3 inches high? I mean,
that's almost too high, I would think. That'd be tough to clear.
Well, there's something called a toothbrush effect that I've seen and I've worked with a little bit, where you're actually making bristles that are 3/8 of an inch high. That's really cool. And then you can do another thing that people don't think about, but you have to have the mold for it, is embossing with silicone. And silicone's perfect for that because it is a thermoset. You'll never wash that ink out of the garment, so that emboss is always going to stay in that shape.
Nice.
cool. That's awesome. So we've got one last question, which is, what are the best materials for screen printing with silicone ink, and what are the worst?
Well, Kelly's working with some of the worst and the best.
Kelly, what's your view on this? You're the one doing all the work here.
Cotton is not the best for me in my experience. Tri-blend is pretty good if I'm going to do like t-shirts. Nylon's just hard, but it's kind of what I specialize in now, or I'm learning to specialize in. So I'm going to figure it out, keep going. I definitely don't think like a heavy cotton, like I do a lot of hoodies. That's not the best. Discharge is pretty good for that, but I guess synthetic. Am I wrong? I don't know.
No, you're absolutely right, Kelly. Synthetic is really where silicones came out for. That's why we see this. The growth of cotton has really kind of plateaued, and synthetics or synthetic blends continues to grow year on year. Over cotton, which is really tied to the expense of cotton in the industry now, but it never used to be that way. I would say the best materials are what Kelly's talking about, and just here's some of that Badger stuff, and the reason why silicone is good. This is 110 with a black blocker, and then a 135 S mesh white, and it blocks these colors really easy. The drapeability on it is just really nice. a really nice buttery handle. And again, the stretch characteristics, you can do that all day long and not get a crack in it.
Right.
So really for anything dye-sublimated, polyesters, nylons, and Kelly, just to comment as you were asking about or talking about nylon, adhesion can be an issue sometimes, even with nylon and silicone. Increasing your catalyst on your first down color will improve adhesion. It will reduce your pot life or your screen life. So always keep that in mind. It's always a trade-off.
We have to go higher with the white. Remember that.
What is the normal ratios of catalyst to ink, and then to go higher on the first down, what would it be?
Yeah, it depends on your manufacturer, but what I see across the globe really is 2 to 3% usually by weight catalyst to your color or your RFU or base. If you're printing clears or high density clears. So somewhere in there, and then if I need improved adhesion, I double it. So if it's 2, I go to 4. If it's 3, I go to 6.
Does that affect the cure time?
Yeah, it will speed up cure time, so you can reduce your flash and reduce heat buildup. And that's one of the other things. We were talking about that cooling station after a flash. Heat management is super critical in any process, and we harp on it coming into shops and talking about it. But if you can manage the heat that actually goes into the ink from the palette onto the screen, you want a certain level. You preheat to get a quick flash time, but if you can add a cooling station afterwards, and you're not just pumping heat into that ink system, that catalyzed ink, you're going to get a lot better shelf life or pot life, screen life out of that ink. Another way to reduce cost.
Sure.
Great. So
Awesome.
Rob says smooth polys, anything hairy is bad.
Yeah, that's right. And Kelly was alluding to that with cotton. Silicones don't like fibrillation. They want to grab the fibers and pull them into a raised position, and then you flash cure them, and they're going to be a wet, hairy cat.
Yeah, I tried to press after, and it doesn't work like plastisol.
Yeah.
So there is another trick. So I know we've got some folks that are running autos. There is another trick for controlling that fibrillation, and I work on cotton. We just need, we need to heat like an M&R smoothie hot iron or manufacturers. But you can't do it like you would water-based. You have to prep it. I'll say you do a half of a flash, so you get it just so you can just feel it starting to kick over, and then you come over with a Teflon and hot iron. On manual, I do the same thing with an actual iron. I just put a sheet of Teflon on it, and then I just iron it into the down position, and then it's flat. It's almost shiny. It's so flat.
So Ray asked this question 3 times, so it must be really important. Can you iron a silicone print?
Absolutely. So it's a thermoset. So once it's there, it doesn't matter. You can bring it up to 1,000 degrees centigrade before it really starts to change. And so we actually use silicones for fire retardancy and a lot of apparel because of that. And your grill gloves, the sticky tacky stuff, that's a silicone because it's very insulated. They're also very resistant to chemicals. So anything that gets dry cleaned, some of these Cintas coveralls and stuff, if they weren't embroidered, I'd say print them with silicone. You can wash them.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Interesting.
So Rob says, Dan may want to mention that the only thing that will stick to silicone is silicone. You may have mentioned this, but I might have been napping. Occasionally, garments may come with a printed silicone stripe. Plastisol will peel right off. Seen this a few times.
Yep, that's true. And some people are also printing on watch bands, wristbands, cell phone covers that are silicone. There's a trick to that too. Just clean the surface that you're going to print with a little bit of isopropyl alcohol or rubbing alcohol to us screen printers beforehand, and you'll clean, that surface. There's mold releases in the injection molding silicones, and they stick to the outside. So if you just pre-clean it beforehand, you can adhere to it. But Rob's right. It's one of the things that I like about silicones is nothing sticks to silicones but silicone. It's also one of the things that I hate about it because it causes
Right. And then Hurley says, I heat pressed a HD silicone print and it took it like a champ.
Yeah.
So Kelly, for somebody that's sitting there going, wow, that sounds like a lot. I'm scared of getting in. Yet you were there once, right?
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to them?
Just try it. Get a black or a white RFU and Uncatalyzed and play with it before you invest in the matte base and all these PCs and all that stuff. Just see if you like it. Do test washes. Maybe make some stuff for some people. See how they like it. If you have customers, see if they would maybe want to make the switch from whatever you're using. But don't be scared of it. I'm so glad I did it, even though I was scared of the price and changing things, because you get something down and you're like, I just autopilot. But I'm so glad I switched because it's my personal opinion. I hate plastisol. So
we're human.
It's just me though. For what I print on, I love discharge ink, which is kind of gross, but it smells really bad and stuff. But yeah, don't be afraid. Just try it. Get a sample. Hit up Dan. He'll find the right person for you to work with.
Right.
So.
I love what you said about the change, that sometimes we get stuck in our ways and we don't want to change. And I just laugh. We're humans. We're screen printers. We fear change.
Yeah.
Don't fear change. It's just t-shirts.
Yes.
And when I talk to somebody that
Well, I can add. Not many people are using
is going to.
Oh.
Hey Dan, you're frozen up, buddy.
I know. My phone just died on me. So.
Oh no.
All right.
Am I back?
You're back.
Okay. So real quick, Alan, I know we're getting to the end of the segment, but when I train somebody on plastisol or silicone printing that is used to plastisol, may have done some water-based, it prints very much like plastisol, much easier.
Right. I know I think where he's going is because it is so buttery and it is so stable. It just prints like we wish all plastisol would. Would you find that to be true, Kelly?
Yeah, it's a
dream. Disappears.
Dream to print with. In the beginning, the cleanup was a little stressful for me, but then I hit up John McGee.
John McGee, yeah.
Yeah, and he gave me his tips, and I bought the stuff he told me to, and it solved everything, and the stuff smelled really good. Yeah. So I enjoy cleanup now. So,
that's great. That's great. So this is the perfect segue, because we're going to run out of time here, to talk about where you find information. Guess what? We have an event coming up. Shirt Lab Summit is a free virtual event that is from one of my companies, Shirt Lab, and that's going to be April 1st and 2nd. We've got 32 speakers. And so there's some folks in there that there's some folks that you probably haven't heard of, but that's okay. It's on sales, marketing, and operations. Lots of valuable stuff. Everybody here is sharing their little secret sauce, whatever they do. And I think you'll find that really interesting. So we've got about 16 people on the first day, April the 1st, which is a Friday. And then Saturday, April 2nd, we got another group. So get signed up. It's completely free. So we'd love to see you there. And then also, Alan and I want to just make sure everybody understands that next week we will be at ISS Atlantic City. What are we doing with that, Alan?
Well, we have a seminar. This whole podcast started as a seminar in 2020 at Long Beach, ISS Long Beach, and it was Q&A with Alan and Marshall. And then, of course, we had the whole world went stupid, and we decided let's go live, and now it's a thing. But we are still doing that at Atlantic City next week at 9 o'clock Eastern. So remember, that's for Michael and those of you in California, that's 6 o'clock Pacific time, but 9 o'clock Eastern. We will be live from the classroom with everybody there.
So if you can't make it because that's too early, and I appreciate that, you can watch the recording.
Absolutely, on YouTube, and then the audio on Spotify and your favorite channels. So,
and Dan's back. That's great. So before we go, let's do some comments, and then we'll get last word with everybody. Then we're out. So Rob says Dan evaporated. Yes, he did.
Exactly.
So great show. Good stuff from Dan and Kelly. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rob. So let's hear from you, Kelly, and then we'll wind up with Dan. So any last minute, any comments from you, Kelly?
This was great. Thank you guys. I'm still brand new. I'm still asking Dan questions all the time. Never be afraid to ask. Never be afraid to try anything. Just have fun, because the world kind of is not fun right now. So
here's the thing that I want you to remember, Kelly, is nobody knows everything. And guess what? We're asking questions of Dan, and I've been in the business since '93. So don't worry about how long you've been in the business. Always ask the questions. So
we're all learning. I mean, not all of us are lucky enough to know everything like Rob Coleman. We've been in the industry as long as I have, but no.
Dan,
it's always a trek of ever learning.
Yeah. How about you, buddy?
Daniel, you there?
Anybody has any questions about silicones, you can hit me up at www.solutionsinc. It's SILUTIONSINK. I'm happy to help.
Great. Thanks. Hey, what about you, Alan? Any last words?
Just as usual, I'm here. You can reach me at How at EasyWay. Any questions, anything I help you with. And you know what? Reach out to people here. I thank you, everybody, for the questions and just the support. We always have great questions, great audience. Thank you very much. I mean, this is Q&A. If without you guys, it's Marshall and I up here doing our little routine, and nobody really needs to hear that. So,
yeah.
But thank you for Dan and Kelly. And Kelly, it was great having you on the show.
Oh,
and
thank you.
now next time,
This is fun. Thank you.
at a trade show and stuff. Now we just hang. It's all good. So
yeah, we'll appreciate everybody. Dan and Kelly, don't go anywhere. We'll see you guys next week from Atlantic City, and appreciate everyone. Have a great weekend.